వీడియో కూడా లేదుగా. So, hi students. Today we are going to discuss about first chapter of audit and assurance paper. That is concept of audit and other assurance engagements. So in this first chapter, so we will discuss about 5 concepts. So first one is about external audit. So that is the form of statutory audit. And the second is 3 terminologies: accountability, stewardship, and agency. So we will discuss about these 3 words in detail. And we will also discuss about different types and levels of assurance. So we know there is a difference between audit and assurance. So in this we will discuss about various types and levels of assurance. And we will also discuss about true and fair view. Last one is about limitations of external audit. So these 5 concepts we will discuss in this first chapter of AA paper. So the first topic is about external audit, right? So what is this external audit? So external audit will be performed by the outside person who is a qualified person. In India, chartered accountant, and in UK countries, ACCA qualified person called practitioner. So he will perform the external audit. So what kind of audit is this external audit? So in this external audit, practitioner will review the financial statements of the company. So financial statements includes balance sheet, statement of financial position, SFP, and P&L, statement of profit or loss, and cash flow statements. So practitioner will review the financial statements and he will give opinion about the set of financial statements. So while reviewing these financial statements, he will carry out certain audit procedures, vouching, and some evidence he will collect. So he will review those financials and he will provide opinion in the form of report, right? So to whom this report will be submitted? This report will be given to the directors or shareholders. This report will be given to the shareholders of the company because they are the owners of the company. So this report will be given to the shareholders of the company. So this is nothing but external audit. So let us see in detail about this external audit. This is a type of assurance engagement carried out by the auditor to give an opinion, and that opinion should be independent. So that is also one of the duty of the auditor. So he has to give his opinion independently without any influence. So this opinion will be given on a set of financial statements. So auditor will be more concerned about the financial numbers. So he don't bother about other non-financial matters, right? So what is the objective of this external audit? Objective of this external audit is to enable the auditor to express an opinion, to give an opinion on whether financial statements are prepared in all material respects in accordance with the applicable financial reporting framework. So that means external auditor will give opinion on financial statements. So what kind of opinion? So he has to tell whether financial statements are prepared in accordance with FRF, Financial Reporting Framework. Nothing but the best example is these financials should be prepared in accordance with the International Accounting Standards, IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standards. And there are certain kind of acts and rules and standards are there that depends upon various countries. So as per that framework, every company has to prepare the financial statements. So auditor has to express opinion whether these financial statements are prepared in accordance with the financial reporting framework or not. So in our next chapters, we'll discuss about this reporting framework. So what are the different acts, rules? So we'll discuss in detail. And as I told, this audit report solely to report to the shareholders. This report will be given to the shareholders of the company. So this external audit is an example of statutory audit. So what is this statutory audit? So statutory audit is nothing but audit in accordance with the statute. Statute means either act or rule or law. For example, Companies Act. Companies Act is also a statute. So as per the Companies Act, audit will be performed, right? So this is external audit is also called as statutory audit. So there is also another type of audit called non-statutory audit. So what is this non-statutory audit? So this audit is not required as per the act, but some companies will appoint auditors to carry out this audit. That audit is called non-statutory audit. So the best example of the non-statutory audit is partnership firms. So as per act, partnership firms are not required to carry out any external audit. But most of the partnership firms will appoint auditors to perform the audit. Those audits are called non-statutory audit. So we'll discuss about that in the next slide. Benefits of statutory audit and benefits of non-statutory audit. So what are the advantages of having a statutory audit? So generally we know if we appoint an outside person, so they will do audit independently. So they can detect any frauds or errors in a financial statements. And they also can give recommendations about the systems being managed by the company. So various companies use different kind of internal controls and different kind of accounting tools. Some companies use SAP, Tally, Focus. So auditors can give recommendations about to the systems. So they will not perform any audit of the systems, but they'll give recommendations in related to the accounting and control systems. And so they can detect frauds and errors. And they'll give impartial view. Impartial view is nothing but independent opinion. So without any partiality, without any bias nature. So they'll give correct picture of the financial statements because he is an independent person. Auditor is an independent person, right? So these are some of the benefits of having a statutory audit. So what are the benefits of the non-statutory audit? So non-statutory audit means that is not a audit as per the requirement of the act, but some of the firms will appoint auditor to perform the audit. Best example is partnership firm. Why these firms appoint auditor for doing statutory audit? So we know partnership firms means a firm with number of partners, right? So business will be performed by the active partners. There will be some sleeping partner too. Sleeping partner means he will not involve in the management of the firm activities. Also, the profits will be shared by the partners as per the agreement. Suppose ABC are the partners of a partnership firm. So there may be an agreement to share the profits in the ratio of 50, 20, 30 or 30, 60, 10. Like some ratio would be there to share the profits of the firm. So for settlement of these accounts, auditors can give the correct picture. So that's why partnership firms will appoint an auditor, though it is not required as per statute, as per act. So it will be easy for settling accounts between the partners, and these audited financial statements are more reliable and acceptable to the tax authorities also, right? So, and in case of special transactions, like if the partnership firm wants to sell a business, or if partnership wants to take a loan from the bank, then these bankers will rely on the audited financial statements. So that is also one of the benefit of having an audit to the partnership firm, though it is not required by the act. And this is also useful for a sleeping partner. Sleeping partner means partner who will not check the accounts of the firm, who will not participate in the activities of the firm, but he is eligible to take the share in the profits. So for him, this audit is very useful because auditor will check the accounts independently. So these are the advantages of having a non-statutory audit. So these are the benefits of a statutory audit and non-statutory audit. So this is about external audit. And if you see this flow chart of audit, so this almost covers our entire AA syllabus. So it starts with planning the audit. So when we plan the audit, so we have to understand the entity. So what kind of entity we are going to audit? So is it a manufacturing entity or it is a software entity? So we have to understand the entity and we have to plan the audit. Once we understand the entity, then we have to select the audit procedures and risks. So once the audit procedures are selected, then we will test the controls. If company has controls, controls means internal controls. So for example, IT controls, company is having good information technology system. So that will test, all the controls will test. If the controls are satisfactory, then we'll do some restricted procedures. That means we'll put some 30% effort or 40% effort if controls are satisfactory. If controls are not satisfactory, then we'll do full substantive procedures. That means we'll do 95 to 100% of the audit. So it depends upon the controls being operated by the management. So that is why it is very important to understand the entity before we plan the audit. So after we do the auditing and we do the procedures, then we will give report to the management and report to the members. So our management means board of directors and members means shareholders, right? So this is what the audit process. So this we'll discuss, if we move to the further chapters, we'll discuss in detail about all these procedures. Next, so out of the 5 topics, we have covered the first topic, and the second topic is about these 3 terms: accountability, stewardship, and agency, right? So let us discuss about these words first. What is accountability? So accountability is nothing but taking responsibility on whatever actions or decisions we take. For example, as a student, you have selected for the ACCA course, right? So that is the decision you have taken to choose the ACCA course. So whatever result or whatever action you are getting by choosing this ACCA course, if you have qualified or if you have passed in all examinations, that is the result, that is the action. So whatever action or decision you have taken and what is the result you are getting. So who are responsible? You are the responsible. And who are accountable? You are the accountable person, and you have to accept that responsibility for your decisions. That is called accountability. So coming to the company point of view, in a company point of view, owners are shareholders, right? Owners will appoint the directors, board of directors to manage the company activities, right? So board of directors are responsible persons. So for whatever decision they take, whatever action they take, so board of directors will take decision on expanding of business. So they may take decision to open a new branch. So they may take to expand the business, or they may take to sell the business, sell one activity. So whatever decisions, actions that board of directors took, who are responsible? They are responsible. They have to take accountability of the decisions. They have to accept the responsibility of their actions. That is called accountability. The conclusion is directors are accountable to the owners. Right? So very simple concept, this accountability. Accountability is nothing but accepting responsibility for whatever actions, whatever decisions taken by the directors. So that acceptance is nothing but accountability. So who are accountable in a company? Directors are accountable. To whom they are accountable? They are accountable to the owners. Like in an employment, employees are accountable to their managers. Like that, in a company, board of directors are accountable to the owners. So that is the accountability concept. The next concept is about stewardship. What is the stewardship? It is nothing but like a job of a security person. What is the job of a security person? To take care of the properties of the person, right? So like that, in a company will have a lot of properties, whether it could be assets or debtors or some other non-current investments, right? So who has to protect the company properties? Director has to protect the properties of the company, right? Because they are the people who are being appointed by the owners of the company, right? Owners just invest the money in the company. So but directors has to protect the properties of the company. That concept is called stewardship. So let us discuss that also. What is stewardship? Duties and obligations of a person. Here person is nothing but directors, BOD, board of directors. Duties and obligations of a person who manages another person's property. Who is that another person's? Another person's is nothing but owners. Owner's property is nothing but company, right? Owner's property is nothing but company, and that company has to be protected by the board of directors. So that concept is called stewardship. In a company, directors account for the stewardship of the assets and investments placed under their control by shareholders. Simply, this stewardship is nothing but job of a security person. He has to take care of the company properties, right? That is the word, meaning of the word stewardship. And the third one is agency. So who are agent? Agents are nothing but people employed to provide some service, right? So marketing agents, they provide marketing service, right? Insurance agents, they provide insurance service. Like that, in a company, directors are also agents. They are agents to whom they are agents? They are agents to the shareholders, right? So they should act as an agent to the shareholders. And these, if you see the meaning of all these words are applicable to the directors. Directors are accountable to the shareholders. Directors should act as agents, and directors should account for the stewardship of the company property, right? In a summary, this is about these three terminologies. So this is our second concept of the chapter 1, right? So if you see the simple flow chart, so shareholders will appoint the management. Management is nothing but BOD, board of directors. These board of directors will prepare the financial statements, right? So these board of directors will manage the company, manage and operate and look after all operations of the company. And this company is being owned by the shareholders, right? So between these shareholders and management, who will act as a mediator, auditor will act as a mediator, right? So he will be an independent auditor. Who will appoint the auditor? Shareholders will appoint the auditor. It is the responsibility of the shareholders to select and appoint the auditor. So this is overall look about the, see if you see here we have three parties. One party is shareholder, they are owners. Second party is board of directors, they are managers, they will manage the company. Third party is practitioners, auditors, they will give opinion about the financial statements. This financial statements is called subject matter. Here in this entire process, this financial statements is the subject matter, right? This has to be verified by the auditor by following certain criteria. What is that criteria? That criteria is nothing but framework, regulatory framework, auditing standards, Companies Act. By following the criteria, they have to test, they have to verify the subject matter. So what is the subject matter here? Financial statements is the subject matter. So if you see, we have 5 terms here. First term is owner, shareholder. Second term is management, board of directors. Third term is practitioner, auditor. Fourth term is financial statements, nothing but subject matter. Fifth term is criteria. Criteria is nothing but act, rules, auditing standards, code of ethics. So this is criteria. Next. So far we have looked about audit. We have discussed in detail about external audit. So there is also called internal audit that we'll discuss in our next chapters. So now let us discuss about assurance. So one of the type of assurance engagement is audit. So we have discussed about audit. Audit is a part of the assurance engagement. So now let us discuss about what is this assurance engagement. A very important definition. Assurance engagement will give confidence to the intended users. So intended users. Who are the intended users here? Shareholders or bankers or creditors, investors, right? So in this assurance engagement, auditors will enhance the confidence of the intended users. Okay, so it will enhance the confidence of the intended users by expressing an opinion, nothing but conclusion. So a practitioner express a conclusion which was designed, that opinion and that conclusion should enhance the confidence of the user, right? So this confidence of the user, the auditor will enhance other than the responsible party. Who is responsible party? Board of directors. So this auditor will not give opinion to the responsible party, means board of directors. So auditor will never give opinion by taking opinions of the responsible party, and he will not give opinion to the responsible party, but he has to give opinion to the intended users. Users is nothing but shareholders, investors, bankers. So they will enhance the confidence of the intended users. Okay, so this opinion will be given on what? This opinion will be given on the subject matter. So what is the subject matter? Is nothing but financial statements, right? So this opinion they will give about the subject matter, that is outcome of the evaluation or measurement of the subject matter against criteria. So what is criteria? This also we have discussed. Criteria is nothing but certain audit procedures according to standards, auditing standards, regulatory framework, right? So this is about the assurance engagement. In our previous slide, this also talks about the assurance engagement. And this is the definition of the assurance engagement, right? So you should be thorough with this terminology of the assurance engagement. A practitioner expresses a conclusion which was designed to enhance the confidence of the intended users other than the responsible party board of directors. And this opinion is about subject matter. Subject matter, they have to evaluate and measure the subject matter against certain criteria, against certain procedures. So this is called assurance engagement. So one of the assurance engagement is external audit. So in this assurance, we have a lot of assurance engagements. So one of the assurance engagement is external audit, right? So we have two levels of assurance engagements: reasonable assurance and limited assurance. So this is also very important topics. Levels of assurance engagement: reasonable assurance and limited assurance. What is this reasonable assurance and limited assurance? Take an example of external audit that we have just discussed. This external audit will give a reasonable assurance. Reasonable assurance means high level of assurance, high level of confidence. That means shareholders will get around 80 to 95% of the confidence about the financial statements. That is called reasonable assurance, high level of assurance. So external audit will give that reasonable assurance. And what is this limited assurance? So there could be some other reviews, other engagements. So one of the example is sustainable reviews. Sustainable reviews means property valuation or share valuations. So auditor will not fully involved into the property valuation. So what they will do, so this valuation, everything will be carried out by the management. So whatever this valuation report is there, that valuation report, auditor will check that valuation report. So they will just check the facts of the valuation report, whether they are doing valuation correctly or not, whether they have appointed a reasonable valuer or not. That assurance is just a limited assurance. Limited assurance means auditor involvement is just some 30% or 40%. It is not a high level of assurance. So these are the two levels of assurance, very important: reasonable assurance and limited assurance. So what is the best example of reasonable assurance? External audit. External audit is the best example of reasonable assurance, right? Okay, so whatever assurance is there, auditor has to express a conclusion. So if you see here, practitioner expresses a conclusion or opinion, right? This conclusion we can give in a positive way or in a negative way. Let us take one example. So we will review the financial statements, right? So we can give positive conclusion and negative conclusion to the financial statements. So I'll give that one statement. So the statement is, suppose I am the practitioner and I am giving a conclusion about the financial statements. I am giving this report. I have audited the financial statements and financial statements are correctly prepared, right? This statement is a positive conclusion, right? I'm giving a statement that financial statements are prepared correctly and in a fair manner. That is a positive kind of statement. I can give this statement in a negative form also. Negative form means I have prepared the financial statements and I have not gone through any frauds or errors in these financial statements. I have not found any errors, any misstatements, any wrongs in the financial statements, right? So my first statement is called positive statement and this statement is called negative conclusion. So both the statements are same. Both the statements are same. Financial statements are prepared in a fair manner, but the way I am giving the conclusion is different, right? In my first statement, I'm giving conclusion in a positive manner. In the second statement, I'm giving conclusion in a negative manner, right? So these are called different types of conclusions. In a reasonable assurance, so we have to give positive conclusion, positive form of conclusion. In a limited assurance engagements, we have to give conclusion in the form of negative form of conclusion we have to give, right? So let us discuss, so whatever introduction we have seen, let us discuss this in our next slides. So I told you there are 5 elements in an assurance engagement. This we have discussed. Criteria, suitable criteria. Criteria is nothing but standards, auditing standards, following act, following international financial reporting standards. That is called criteria. Report. Report is nothing but assurance report. Nothing but conclusion, opinion. That is called report. Evidence. Evidence is nothing but sufficient appropriate evidence. So whenever we do an audit, we'll collect some evidence. For example, to check the bank balance as per books. What evidence we'll collect? We'll collect a bank statement from the banker. That is a form of evidence. So there are a lot of evidences are there to carry out the audit procedures. So that evidence we have to take, and subject matter. So what is the subject matter in an external audit?
Ma'am, may you please repeat criteria, please?
Okay, so subject matter. So we have discussed about criteria and then report. Report is nothing but opinion, conclusion at the end of the audit. Evidence. Evidence means while carrying out the audit, so auditor will obtain lot of evidence. So that is also one of the criteria. They have to obtain the evidence and they have to maintain record of those evidence. That is called working papers. So we'll discuss in detail about our next chapters. So they have to collect sufficient, like enough evidence. That evidence should be enough to give a fair opinion. So they have to collect sufficient evidence. And then subject matter. Subject matter is nothing but data to be tested, data to be verified. In an external audit, so what is the subject matter? Financial statements is the subject matter in an external audit. In a property valuation, what is the subject matter? Asset and its valuation is the subject matter. In a share valuation, what is the subject matter? Shares is the subject matter. In an external audit, what is the subject matter? Financial statements is the subject matter. So who will prepare this subject matter? Subject matter will be prepared by the responsible party. Who is responsible party in a company? Board of directors. Of course, board of directors also will appoint employees. Of course, employees will prepare the data entry, financials will be prepared by the employees, but it is the responsibility of the board of directors for the subject matter. Subject matter will be the complete responsibility of the board of directors. And then 3-party relationship. This also we have discussed. So who are those 3 parties? Intended users. Intended users is nothing but shareholders. Apart from shareholders, there are a lot of other users in a public companies like investors, bankers, markets, creditors. So intended user is one of the party, and responsible party. Responsible party is nothing but board of directors. And then practitioner. Practitioner is nothing but auditor, right? This is called 3-party relationship. So these are the elements of the assurance engagement. So we may get questions, 2 marks questions on this. What are the elements of assurance engagement? There is some shortcut given: CREST. C means criteria, R means report, E means evidence, S means subject matter, T means 3-party relationship. So these are the elements of assurance engagement. So this is our third topic. So in our introduction, we have mentioned, no? So we have discussed about external audit, first topic. Second topic, we have discussed about accountability, stewardship and agent. And third one is types and levels of assurance and reporting. Now we are discussing about types and levels. So we have discussed about levels of assurance. What are those levels? Reasonable assurance and limited assurance. So this we'll discuss in detail in our next slides. And types of assurance. So types are nothing but elements of assurance. Those 5 elements we have discussed. So now let us discuss in depth about assurance. So this is what elements of assurance. So we know we'll have one practitioner, subject matter, evidence, report, intended users, responsible party, criteria. So if you see, all this is the starting point is subject matter. And subject matter should be against some criteria. So these two are very important, and all others are is around 3-party relationship. So this is, we have already discussed, intended users. Nothing but person for whom we prepare the report. For whom we prepare the report? For shareholders, right? So in a public companies, apart from shareholders, there are a number of other users. So if you see NDTV, TVs on some markets, so they'll announce the results publicly. Audited results, they'll announce publicly. They'll set up some meeting and they'll announce publicly. That means there are a lot of other users for the public companies, right? And responsible party. Responsible party is nothing but person who is responsible for the subject matter. Of course, who are responsible? Directors. Practitioner. Practitioner is nothing but an individual person who give the professional service. Nothing but SCA qualified person. Next. Whatever we have discussed about external audit, let us have some example. Consider the external audit engagement. So we have to consider the external audit and we have to identify the 5 different elements of the external audit. We know what are the elements of the assurance engagement, and this audit is a part of the assurance engagement, right? So identify the examples of each element. So this is the one of the question. So this left column is about the elements and this right column is about the linking of these elements to the external audit. So if you see 3-party relationship, in an external audit, who are those 3 parties? Shareholders, directors, and auditor, right? Subject matter. So in an external audit, what is the subject matter? Financial statements, right? And criteria. So as I discussed, international standards on audit and assurance and IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standards, and Companies Act. So these are all statutes. This is criteria and evidence. So as I told, we have to, auditor has to obtain sufficient and enough evidence, nothing but records, documentation, source, that evidence. And then assurance report. Assurance is nothing but auditor's report. So this also we'll discuss in our last chapter, audit report all we'll discuss. So I think so far you are understood about the external audit, its elements, and how this 3-party relationship is there, and what are the elements of assurance engagements. So these are all very important for this 2 marks question bits. Next, same audit, same, this question 2 and question 1 are similar. Auditors are frequently required to provide assurance for a range of non-audit engagements. Required, list and explain elements of a assurance engagement. So this is a 5 marks question, and this was given in our 2014 AA paper. So this is the question being asked in our examination, SSC examination. This was the question asked. And they are asking about non-audit engagements. So non-audit engagements means, so can anyone explain what is engagement other than external audit? So we have discussed about assurance engagements, right? So we have lot of assurance engagements, and out of which one of the assurance engagement is audit, external audit. There could be other assurance engagements.
Property,
Ma'am,
property valuation.
Correct. Property valuation, these are all non-audit engagements. Property valuation, sustainability audits, and other valuations, share valuations. So they the number of due diligence audit. If banker want to give any loan, so a banker will appoint auditor to carry out due diligence. Debtors audit, creditors audit, fixed assets audit. So these are all called other non-audit, external audit engagements. So whether it could be audit engagements or external audits or other audits, the elements are same. The answer is same. Thus, we have 5 elements, right? CREST. So that elements are same, against which we have to select the examples. So in these 3 parties, so what are those 3 parties in a non-audit, whether it could be audit or non-audit, 3 parties are same. Intended users, responsible party, and practitioner, right? Subject matter. So what is subject matter? Data to be evaluated and that has been prepared by the responsible party. For audit, what is the data? Financial statements. And for non-audit, the data could be property values, share values, or some other creditor balances, debtor balances, whatever data that has been prepared by the responsible party. Criteria. Criteria means criteria used to check the subject matter to give the opinion. Criteria is nothing but standards. So for a property valuation, they have to refer the Property Act. They have to refer the Property Act. For a share valuation, they have to refer the relevant Share Valuation Act. So there could be a lot of other acts and legislations. They have to refer that criteria. For external audit, standards are there. Auditing standards, accounting standards are there. So for other audits, there could be some other legislations that they have to refer. Evidence. Evidence is nothing but sufficient evidence to support whatever opinion we are giving. For that, we have to collect the enough evidence. So we have to keep record of that evidence. And the final one is report. Report that is intended to the user, right? So whatever is this, so here this is wrong actually, this is not external audit. This is non-audit. So I've copied and pasted that, that came. Example for non-audit, not external audit. So I copied the below table, that way the table heading came. Right, whether it could be audit or non-audit, external audit or other review, the criteria and elements are same. So main shortcut is CREST. So that is very important for any type of engagement. Next, types of assurance engagements. As I told, there could be lot of assurance engagements, external audit and review. So that has been classified into 2 categories. First one is external audit and the other one is called review engagements. So whatever other engagements, property valuation, whatever we discussed, they are called review engagements, right? There could be financial review engagements, half-year review. External auditors will not perform half-year review, they will perform full review. So we wanted to have half-year review with the other auditor, we can perform. That is also other assurance engagement. Going concern review. So going concern, external auditor will not perform completely this going concern review. So we can appoint auditor to perform the going concern review. And we can appoint auditor to review the IT systems, information technology. So whether they are doing manual thing or system related controls or manual controls they are doing, that also we can have a review for the auditors. Corporate governance. So for corporate governance testing also we can appoint an auditor. Due diligence. So best example of due diligence is bankers and investors will appoint auditors to perform the due diligence. And internal audit reviews. Of course, internal audit, we know internal audit reviews will be performed by the internal auditors, and they company will appoint the internal auditors. So these are the examples of review engagements, right? They are not external audit engagements, they are called review engagements. If you see the link between two, the first one, external audit, what kind of assurance this external audit will give? Can anyone tell what kind of assurance this external audit will give? Right? So these are external audit and review engagements. So apart from this thing, internal auditors also will carry out review engagements. So that we will discuss in our next chapters. We have complete chapter about this internal auditors. Generally, in practical, we will depend upon the internal auditors to carry out the review engagements because they know about our internal controls. So we can appoint internal auditors, we can also appoint outside auditors also. So this we will discuss in our later sections. Next, so we have discussed about this assurance, right? Reasonable assurance and limited assurance. So let us discuss in detail about this assurance. So what is this assurance? Assurance is nothing but auditor will give his satisfaction about assertion made by one party for use by another party. What is this assertion? So look at the second paragraph. Directors prepare the financial statements for the benefit of the members, right? So they'll prepare financial statements, they'll prepare profit and loss, and that will be given to the members. Members are nothing but shareholders, so that shareholders can take decisions, right? Directors will give assertion. Assertion is nothing but one statement. Statement means 100% confident thing. Assertion, confidence. So what kind of confident directors will give? They assert that financial statements give a true and fair view. So directors are giving one assertion that financial statements are giving true and fair view. What auditors will give? Auditors will provide assurance on that assertion. Auditors will give opinion on that assertion. Now directors are giving statement that my financial statements are true, my financial statements are fair and true, right? Auditors will give assurance on that assertion. Assurance is nothing but conclusion, opinion that we have discussed in our previous slides, right? And we have also discussed there are two types of assurances, two levels of assurance. Assurance can be reasonable or assurance can be limited, right? And we have also discussed in a reasonable assurance what kind of conclusion they'll give. They'll give conclusion in a positive form. This also we have discussed in a positive form and a negative form, right? Conclusion would usually be expressed in a positive form. And to give this conclusion, auditor has to spend significant amount of testing and evaluation. Significant. That means they have to do 90 to 95% of testing they have to perform. So they have to perform various extensive procedures because this a reasonable assurance will give high level of assurance, right? Next is limited. This also we have discussed. This limited assurance, the conclusion will be given in a negative form, right? And the nature, timing, extent of procedures are very limited compared to the reasonable assurance. In a reasonable assurance engagement, auditors will spend 3-4 months of time. But in a limited assurance engagements, auditors will spend some 15 days or 1 month or 10 days. The timing and extent of procedures are very limited. And the conclusion is also very important. In a limited assurance, negative form of conclusion. In a reasonable assurance, positive form of conclusion, right? And I have given some example also. In a reasonable assurance, external auditors will give, in our opinion, financial statements present fairly. That means financials are presented in a fair manner. That is a positive form of conclusion that we will give in a reasonable assurance. And the statement is same, but we will express in a negative form. That is another example. The conclusion like, nothing has come to our attention that causes us to believe that financial statements do not give true and fair view. Right? 1 and 2 are same, but in a second statement, we are saying that we don't have any information to say that financial statements are wrong. That is nothing but financial statements are true only, right? So that is how we have to give the assurance report. Next, so we have discussed about external audit. That is one of the assurance engagement. The other engagement is review engagement. We have discussed property valuation, share valuation, and due diligence review engagements. These engagements are of two types: attestation engagements and direct engagements. Attestation engagements. So I can say this attestation engagement is to provide opinion on subject matter that information is free from material misstatement. So please understand, in this engagement, subject matter will not be measured. Subject matter will not be evaluated by the practitioner. That means subject matter will not be tested by the practitioner. In our example, property valuation, that valuation will not be tested by the practitioner because practitioner don't know about the property and property measurements. They are not technical person, right? They are not civil engineers, right? So they'll not measure the subject matter, but they'll conclude, they'll give opinion whether that subject matter is free from material misstatement. That means they'll test whether the property has been valued by the register valuer or not, whether they have followed the act. There could be some property act, some legal acts, whether they have followed those criteria acts or not. So they'll give conclusion that information or subject matter is free from material misstatement. So this is what they'll give. Subject matter is free from material misstatement. Whether it is free or whether it is not free, that they have to give. Remember, in attestation engagements, subject matter will not be tested, will not be measured, will not be evaluated by the practitioner. That means the amount of time is very simple, maybe 1 week or 10 days. The amount of effort is given by the auditor is maximum 10 days to 15 days. This is a limited assurance engagement, right? Attestation engagements. We have seen in India also a lot of engagements will be performed by the auditors. GST audit, GST engagements, PF ESA engagements. Auditor will test and they will give some opinion, they will give some sign. For bank loan, they have to do some net worth audits, right? These are all called attestation engagements. And the other engagement is direct engagement. In this direct engagement, auditor has to put some effort. In attestation engagement, auditor will put maximum 10 to 15% of effort. But in this direct engagement, auditor will put some 50-60% of effort. In this engagement, subject matter will be measured and evaluated. That means they'll test the subject matter. Example will be, best example is testing of internal controls of the company, right? So here they'll give conclusion in the form of assurance report. So whatever outcome they got, they'll give the assurance report. Best example is internal controls, testing of internal controls, right? So these are two types of review engagements. Next, we have discussed about true and fair view. True and fair view means what is true? Yeah.
Ma'am, once can
What
you
was
explain
the difference?
attestation engagement?
1 minute.
Ma'am, what is the difference between directing?
So next is about true and fair view. So auditor has to express on true and fair view of the financials. So what is true? We know this is just general terminology. True means information should be factual, means real. It has to follow standards, law, correct, normal, general terminology. So information which auditor has to ensure that whatever information shared by the directors is true and fair. Fair means what? Information should free from discrimination or bias. Bias means we should not overestimate the income, we should not underestimate the expenditure, we should not do any frauds or errors, and we have to follow standards, rules, fair manner. So information should be true and fair. That also okay, so true and fair we have discussed, and the conclusion of the first chapter is very important conclusion. External audit will never give absolute assurance. So far we have discussed about reasonable assurance and limited assurance. But audit will not give absolute assurance. Absolute assurance means 100% assurance. 100% confidently, auditor will not give true and fair view because of some of the limitations of the external audit. So what are those limitations? Well, best examples, auditor will not test 100% of the transactions because all 12 months transactions they may not test. And some of the judgments they have to make, right? And auditor report also has some limitations because the standard gives certain form of report. In that report, in that format only, auditor has to express their opinion. And auditors will perform the audit after the year end, right? After 12 months, auditor will come into the picture. They don't know about the historic data. So these are all the limitations of the external audit. That is the reason why external audit will never give absolute assurance. What assurance it will give? It will give only reasonable assurance, right? This is also very important for 2 marks questions, kind of assurance that will be given by the auditor. And the last topic is about materiality. So while doing the audit, auditor has to look into the materiality concept. So what is this materiality? So while taking sampling of the audit, so auditor has to ensure that its omission would influence the economic decisions of the users. I'll give an example. So company has 100 crores worth of assets, right? Out of these 100 crores, 99 crores is of 6 items and 1 crore is of 1,000 items. So what auditors will do? Auditors will ignore those 1,000 properties. Auditor will concentrate on only 6 properties. Because why? Out of this 100 crores, 99 crore. That means that 99 crore is very material item. Its omission would influence the decision of the shareholder, right? So like that, auditor has to use the materiality concept while performing the audit. That is called materiality. Very important. The matter is material if its omission or misstatement would influence the decisions of the users. If we miss that in matter, that will influence the user decision. One more example is director salaries. That we have to disclose in a profit and loss account. If we miss that information and if we club it in other expenses, that will influence the decision of the user, right? So that also we have to see. So this materiality concept we have to look into. So there are some questions, two, 3 questions are there. So tomorrow we will do the summary of this chapter and we will go through these questions, and tomorrow our first 10-15 minutes we can conclude the first chapter and we can move to the second chapter. Okay, thank you.
Okay, good.